Was it worth waiting so long for this Avatar adaptation? It was worth every damn second. The second trailer for Avatar: The Last Airbender has been incredibly good. In the 2 minutes and 39 seconds it lasted, it showed us much more than what some of us expected, to the point of being moved and excited for this new adaptation.
My heart is so full of hope that it's making me tear-bend.
In this video we are going to analyze detail by detail each scene, comparing it with the animated series. How many changes will we have in the story? Stay tuned to this video to find out. We start with a scene at the North Pole, with the Fire Nation fleet arriving on the coast. As far as we know, it is not the Southern Water Tribe because only Zuko and his crew were there, while here we see the invasion at the hands of Commander Zhao. Then we have a glimpse of the Avatar team flying over the Heibai forest near Sunlin village. We move on to the invasion of the Fire Nation to the air temples. This we already saw in the previous trailer, and as I did not explain it in any video, I make a clarification. These are not fireballs, they are firebenders propelling themselves as they are influenced by the power of the Sozin comet. Speaking of Sozin, we finally discovered that this old man is him, and in better definition we noticed that unlike the shot in the clip we saw yesterday, his eyes are not so red. This is because in the clips we saw yesterday the VFX was not quite finished, having a watermark under each video. Sozin looks imposing, as does his armor and overall design. Hopefully this introduction to the series showing us the Fire Nation attack will be long enough to give us a good amount of action and moments of Roku's treacherous friend, as well as a taste of what the end of Book 3 will be like. After this we would see the continuation of the scene from the first trailer, where Katara and Sokka find the iceberg of Aang. The effect of the explosion looks amazing, feeling very real. This is because, at least a part of the production in charge of visual effects is DNEG, one of the leading companies in the industry, working for films like Inception, Dune, Interstellar among others. The appearance of the Avatar looks stunning as we saw it in the first episode of the animated series. I hope they do a shot from this angle, because it looks great. We continue with a look at the capital of the Fire Nation. And a Fire Lord Ozai talking with perhaps military leaders. From the first time we saw Ozai I loved his costume and that he is the one who gives life to the future King Phoenix. Personally I haven't seen much of his work as an actor, but I think physically the role fits him perfectly. Let's clarify for those who did not see yesterday's video, that both Ozai and Azula will actively participate in this book instead of waiting a whole season to show us the princess, and 2 seasons to see the Fire Lord as happened in the animated series. This is because Albert Kim decided to give them a chance to show and develop more characters that they already know were very well received by the public, as is the case of Azula. In my opinion, the appearance of Ozai from the first book was a request of Brian and Mike because, as they explained recently, they think it was a mistake to keep this antagonist in the shadows for so long. And yes, even though the creators left, they participated in episode 1, and in the basis of the Netflix adaptation. We see Azula using a bow, something we never saw in the animated series. At least that I remember. In the comics we saw how during the childhood of the brothers, Ozai commanded to kill Ursa's ex-boyfriend by hiring a Yuyan archer. Having easy access to this elite force, and a daughter who was clearly a prodigy in combat, perhaps Ozai during the adaptation has trained his daughter with them. We don't know if Azula's arrow is the one that causes the explosion we see in the next scene, which before it starts has a green glow. Can you think what it could be? We continue with the first glimpse of Earth Kingdom soldiers, as well as ostrich horses. This scene is from the episode Winter Solstice Part 1. I think this is going to be one of the best episodes of the whole series since they have shown it so many times. Here we see one more change. In the animated series, Uncle Iroh is captured by Earth Kingdom soldiers. When he tries to escape, the soldiers decide to crush/cut off his hands so that he will not hurt anyone again. Yes, in a series for children, at this moment enters Zuko with a flying kick to rescue him. As far as we see here it is different, and the Prince of the Fire Nation cuts them off to help the tea drinker. In the next scene we see the ruins of the Southern Air Temple as we see Katara and Sokka still wearing their coats. I think the representation is perfect because in the series we saw no signs of battle but the helmet of the Fire Nation and the place where Aang found the body of his master. At the bottom we can see some stone peaks very similar to the Forest of Wulong, place where they faced the Combustion Man and where would be the final battle with the Fire Lord. This would not be geographically possible because both places are very distant from each other. It is very likely that there is a sample of the volume here. The set that is used to create 3D surround scenery, part of the set is assembled manually and the background is done digitally. The Netflix adaptation won the Guinness record for the largest set of this type used so far, and it feels quite natural. The images shown on the screen make the lighting project onto the actors so it all feels more real. After this we have a water tribe in ruins, probably the northern one, with people being evacuated. In the rubble we see some soot marks, probably from the Fire Nation attacks. We then see the Avatar team flying over Kyoshi Island, where a reference is made to the introduction of the series with an Aang doing an air scooter and crashing into a statue. We continue with what seems to be Zuko's ship, as we see a big difference with the ships we saw in the first scene. The same thing happened during the animated series, as Zuko's ship was much smaller and obsolete than those of the Fire Nation fleet, a gift from Ozai to further humiliate his son after his banishment. We have a glimpse of the Fire Nation army, keeping a very similar aesthetic to that of the animated series and having certain touches of the initial sketches, which were simplified to facilitate their animation. We return to the winter solstice episode with Iroh using firebending. Interestingly, during this battle, Uncle Iroh does not use his fire at any time, defeating the Earth Kingdom soldiers with the same chains that had held him captive.
We have no time for your proverbs, Uncle.
It's no proverb. Maybe it should be a proverb.
Come on, Uncle.
We continue with an image of powerful Ozai during the Agni Kai with his son. Dallas Liu commented in the reaction to the trailer that the cast made, that for that scene he didn't need to act too much, having Daniel Kim with his imposing physique in front of him was enough to feel terror. The scenes where we see the architecture of the Fire Nation feel very much in the style of the series. Maybe the air temples feel a little different, but the Fire Nation looks the same. In the next shot we have Aang who hugs Appa. I can't believe how similar this bison looks to the one in the series. Get ready to cry when we see Appa's Odyssey in Book 2. We continue with a close-up look at Momo who looks identical to the one in the series. P.S. For those of us who were asking for a little dirt and wear and tear on the characters' clothes, here are the first glimpses with Sokka. Continuing with the animals, we see the Shirshu. The tongue of the Shirshu has thorns, unlike the one in the animated series. The beast looks very good, as does June, who we had already seen in a photo. Heibai appears, he looks really good. I didn't know how the representation of this spirit was going to turn out, but it looks amazing. We can then expect a good design for maybe the scariest spirit of the whole series, Ko the Face Stealer. In the next scene, Zhao arrives on the island Kyoshi with a small troop of soldiers. Recall that part of the sequence we saw in the previous trailer, with a Kyoshi falling from the sky. Here we obviously have changes. In the animated series, who came to Kyoshi Island in search of the Avatar was Zuko, and the moment where we saw the Avatar of the Earth Kingdom in physical form was only in the second book in the episode The Day of the Avatar. I say in physical form because we already met Kyoshi in episode 1 of Book Earth, where Roku explains the function of the Avatar state. Here we have a few seconds of a fight between the Kyoshi warriors, including Sokka in his uniform, versus Zhao and the Fire Nation. There are some interesting things to highlight here. For one thing, Sokka and Suki fight side by side, literally. For another, Suki doesn't have her makeup on, and lastly, she looks like she's having fun doing it. Suki's uniform looks amazing, and if it's well choreographed this is likely to be a very good fight. We move on to Omashu, this time seen from the skies, and we have another change with respect to the animation. We see Teo flying in his glider, and Aang following him as we saw in the episode The Northern Air Temple. This was obvious that it was going to happen, combining different stories, although I expected to see the Freedom fighters inside the great city of the Earth Kingdom. The details look beautiful, the city looks amazing. I can't imagine what Ba Sing Se is going to be like in Book 2. But Glide also looks quite natural. We continue with an Avatar team hug, and move on to another one of what is probably one of the best fight scenes we will ever see. The Blue Spirit. The mask he wears is exactly the same. If we were to freeze this frame alone, it would look like an Avatar console game, because Zuko, the mask, the swords all look identical. The airbending attack that Aang uses looks like a jewel. From here on we would have a series of small clips of fighting and demonstration of the beating. We have the bald guy on a Fire Nation ship. This scene I think is from episode 2, and this one is already in the North Pole, when Aang goes to destroy the siege engines of the Fire Army. More airbending, this time in the Southern Water Tribe. Sokka's boomerang sneak attack. Bumi's clip, this time in better definition. I still have my doubts on how earth beating looks like, but it's not bad at all. For now the fire beating beats them all by far. The choreography of the moves doesn't look bad either. In this case Aang tries to stop Bumi's attack and we go to the end of the season with Katara fighting against Zuko. My respects to who animated the water because it looks amazing, and the actress who plays her also moves as we would see it in the series. One of the most epic shots is the one of Jet with his hooks repelling the fire to protect Katara. Jet looks exactly like he did in the animated series. It looks great. Lastly, we have a confrontation between Zuko and Aang in the first episode. The movements of both masters looks great, and the special effects are not far behind. We finish the trailer with Aang entering the Avatar state, something we saw in the previous teaser, and finally the logos of the 4 nations in the series, with an effect that simulates the pattern of Aang's tattoos that looks amazing. I'll be honest with you, I expected to see some things I didn't like in this trailer, but incredibly I liked everything. The only thing I noticed was the use of Aang's air scooter and the Blue Spirit mask, but as I said in my previous video, it's such an insignificant detail in relation to how good the rest of the trailer is, the characters, the effects, the music, that it doesn't even make sense to mention it. It looks great and I'm excited to see the series and hopefully it will be a success so they can start the production of the next seasons. What did you think? What do you think was the best thing about the trailer and what was the worst? I'll read you in the comments. Thank you very much for staying up to here. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the little bell to be aware of all the news and new announcements that are made about this adaptation. We will be seeing you in these days with more videos. Bye.